Hi everybody. Well, I recently hinted around that I was into an old group that had been around for a long time, and I left some hints, and I was trying to see if anybody could pick up the clues and tell who this artist was without me revealing him. But as it turned out, a lot of people made a lot of good guesses in the comments section. A lot of you got it right, a lot of you got it wrong. So now I'm going to show you that artist, and for those of you who got this right, give yourself a well-deserved pat on the back. Although I'm not going to be giving out prizes or anything like that for this time. But here's the group, The Shadows. That's right, English group, British group, who didn't have really much success at all here in the United States, and that's going to be part of this little topic conversation that I'm going to talk about. Well, the story is that I was in my record store, and a big collection came in, and there were a lot of different artists in that collection, but among the many artists they had were just about every record the Shadows had made. Now, the Shadows were originally a backing group for the teen idol singer Cliff Richard, and I'm going to be showing some Cliff Richard records in a while, but I'll talk more about him and what I feel about him as I get there. But what I really liked was I started playing a lot of these records in the store. I sampled many records, and I really liked what I heard all the way through. And I said, how did I not know about these guys up till now? And look how long it's been that I've been, a stranger to their music. So what I decided to do was go big and buy just about everything, almost everything, and do it up in style, so to speak. I don't know what I can say right now. Hank Marvin, great guitar player. I'm now a big fan of Hank Marvin. He's going to be up there for me when people talk about favorite guitarists. And I remember the Paul McCartney video that he made for a song called Coming Up, where he put glasses on and he was having a guitar. And originally we thought he was doing Buddy Holly, which he should have really done. I don't know why he didn't, but he wasn't doing Buddy Holly. He was imitating Hank Marvin in that Coming Up video, for what that's worth. So that's the first one I'm going to show you, and these albums are going to be in no particular order. So what I'm going to do is that there is a lot that I have to say. I'll try to remember what I want to say without notes as I go along here. Here's another album. These are, like I said, no particular order here. Out of the Shadows. Some of these were original records, not all of them in great condition. Now, I'd heard of the Shadows many times before. The name always came up. Cliff Richard's name always came up. When you're into the Beatles mention the Shadows every now and then, usually in the context of how they had never had success in America. Not all these records are in great shape, but this one looks like it's been well played. But, it's an original UK album. And they always said how, they were worried that the Beatles weren't going to have any success in the United States because, English artists never did before this, and always bringing up Cliff Richard and the Shadows. And I remember John Lennon once saying, a lot of these bands I never thought were much cop except for Cliff. So he mentioned Cliff. And all this stuff stuck in my head as I was going through the records. And, as I say, I didn't just buy blindly. I listened to a lot of this. I realized that I was liking what I was hearing here. So, Shadow Music by the Shadows. And again, we have like a EMI record there, with the foldbacks. Now, an album like this, the collection was so big by this person that they actually had some Shadows records that were like reissues. And because I'm so familiar with the Beatles, later pressings, they had 1970s pressings of some of these, and I had to choose one or the other, so I picked the original 1960s, and I left the 1970s press of some of these. There's MFP, Music for Pleasure. This one here, London, Paris, Stockholm. I'm going to show you some of the labels. I won't show you all the labels because I know that right now this video is going to go long, and I don't want it to go too long. But, I never really saw like a black label MFP, Music for Pleasure. But there's some of these in here. So But yeah, it's amazing to me that these guys are so good. They play their instruments so well. Music is so professional and quality. I just don't know how they didn't make it bigger in the U.S. You know, and I was very impressed as I was going through all these and learning more about them. There's another music for pleasure label. I wish I could hold them straight like that, but there's too much glare. As I was listening to these and reading up about them, I realized they started in like 1958. I mean, they really, really preceded the Beatles. They were here way before the Beatles were, way before the Beatles. And I was impressed also that they kept going on and on, you know, through the 60s. For those who don't know the history, you know, they started in 58. As I say, you know, there's the group there. With Hank Marvin, to me, with the glasses being the main man, so to speak. And they started as the Drifters. Their name was the Drifters when they started. And then later on, because of the U.S. band, the Drifters, they changed their name to the Shadows, not to get confused with them. Accompanying teen idol Cliff Richard. And eventually, in 1968, they separated from Cliff, as I understand it. You know, these are all different imports. So I'm not sure of all of them what they are. You know, what country they're all from. So anyway, like I was saying, they separated from Cliff Richard, and they went on to do their own thing in the late 60s, 70s. And they broke up, but they have albums, even though they disbanded off and on. They have albums in the 80s, and I think I found an album by them, or I heard of an album by them. I don't think I actually have it in this collection, from 1990. And, you know, when I see pictures of Hank Marvin, I have to say, the guy looks really good for his age. He's like in his 70s, and he looks terrific. It's amazing to me. He looks like he hasn't aged much at all. Very, very impressive. And you know, this says the Shadows vocals, which is a good time to bring up that, you know, most of what I like about the Shadows are not the vocals. I like the music. I like the instrumentals. They are very much, you know, the British Ventures. You know, we had the Ventures here in the States. Well, these guys are like the British Ventures. And this is an Australian album, this particular one here, you know. So I happen to see this on the back that it's Australia. You know, I like the covers. Yeah, a lot of them are hits compilations. After I got the main albums, plus I got some hits compilations. Now, as I say, they didn't have success in the U.S., but here's a U.S. album, Surfing with the Shadows. Sounds very Beach Boys oriented, right? And, you know, also capitalizing. This does not say McCartney, by the way. Seems like a few people own this particular record. It's writing all over the back. But, you know, like I said, I only came across a couple of U.S. albums. I think 2 U.S. albums. So I don't know how many they had in the U.S. This one here is on the Portrait label, Greatest Hits compilation. And of course, the song Apache is their big hit. That, you know, that's on a lot of these. And Apache, I know that song. Now, this particular one is Tel Aviv. That's right. This is an Israeli pressing. It says Tel Aviv on the back. Here's one of the later albums. This says from 1986. Moonlight Shadows. It's amazing. Moonlight Shadows. I'm just so impressed, you know, how long these guys went on. It's just weird to think, you know, everybody forgets about the Shadows. They preceded the Beatles, you know. They came in 1958. They were here all during the Beatles' reign. There's an album called Tasty. And then they went on into the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and they still play, I think in 2010, maybe? I mean, this is crazy. This is a later album. It's 1977. It's got stuff on here like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Honky Tonk Woman, You know, Walk, Don't Run, The Most Beautiful Girl. He has a Greatest Hits Volume 2 collection. I mean, these guys just look so cool, too. I like the way they look in those suits, you know, very Beatles. This is an Australian album. You know, it's the same dynamic here as the Beatles for Beatles collectors. You know, you have the original UKs, then you have repressings of the UKs without the flaps in the back. Here's another one that's got the flaps. More hits. The Shadows. And, you know, it's the same dynamic, you know. I can see, you know, you have the EMI stuff on the back, and you can buy imports from Australia or Germany. So yeah, it's mostly the instrumentals that I'm interested in. I like them when they're instrumental. The vocals, I don't really need the vocals. I basically think of these guys as, like I say, the Ventures. You know, I like the Ventures also. So between the Ventures and the Shadows, I'm good to go when it comes to just music. Listen to straight music. All right, now I'm going to show my first Cliff Richard album, and I'll talk a little about that. Now, there he is. Cliff Sings. I'm pretty sure this is the first of the albums, but I'm learning as I go here. And the Cliff Richard aspect of this, you'll be surprised maybe, I'm not interested in, you know. I like the Shadows. Cliff Richard, the fact that he just happens to be the lead singer in the early days, and they're backing him, is neither here nor there. I mean, there's some good songs on here that I like. I mean, Living Doll is nice, and some other songs here that I liked. I played this one. But I'm not really into the Cliff Richard aspect, to tell you the truth. I think Cliff Richard, with all due respect, who's still around, kind of, you know, it's kind of a nerdy, geeky, teeny bopper thing. You know, lead singer like, you know, Fabian or whatever, you know. But, you know, the Shadows, as you can see there, are his band. And in fact, here's one of the titles, the Cliff Richard album. It's called Me and My Shadows, you know. So there you go. And to me, it's, you know, it almost makes me think of a comparison in comedy films. Ted Healy and the Stooges. You know, it's like the Three Stooges were with Ted Healy. This is Ted Healy. Just an analogy. I just thought this analogy up. Cliff Richard is like Ted Healy, you know. Ted Healy and the Stooges, and after they went on their own, they broke up and became the Three Stooges, and they ditched Healy. I mean, I know they probably don't feel that way, but that's how I feel. Maybe as time goes on, I'll get more into the Cliff Richard aspect of this. Don't get me wrong, some of the songs here are very good. I mean, you got Ready Teddy on here, you know. That'll Be the Day, Bebop-A-Lula, you know, a whole lot of shaking going on. So there's a lot of songs here. And I know that Cliff Richard had a hit in the 70s with a song called Devil Woman that I liked a lot in the 70s. And you start getting into, I have a lot of like soundtracks, Cliff Richard, The Young Ones, soundtrack to The Young Ones. We're going to be getting to some soundtrack albums here. Now this is one of the worst covers I've ever seen in my life. You know when they have contests and people have videos, what to you are your worst album covers? Well, what the hell is that? Somebody want to explain to me how they got him looking like that? That is one of the worst album covers I've ever seen. But like I say, there's a lot of hits on this particular one collected here. Mean Woman Blues, Reelin' and Rockin', you know, I'm Walking, Fats Domino, Blue Suede Shoes, 20 Flight Rock. I mean, so even though I'm not into this for the Cliff Richard aspect, and you can tell that when you see something like this, oh, how cute, you know, Cliff Richard with the Shadows, Ted Healy and the Stooges with Wonderful Life, another movie soundtrack. And, you know, I'm learning about all this stuff as I go. Now, I'm going to start speeding it up a little bit because, you know, it's just getting to be 14 minutes here, so I want to kind of speed up a little bit. There we go. Okay, I like the cover of this one. This is a French import. This is from France. 32 minutes and 17 seconds with Cliff Richard. And, by the way, the Shadows. So, that's a cool, I like fun covers like that. Alright, here's, you want to find one that's really kind of twee? Oh, how cute. 21 today. Celebrating Cliff Richard's 31st birthday. blowing out the candles with, of course, the main man, my man, Hank Marvin. All these years, I finally discovered Hank. Okay, When in Spain, Cliff Richard and the Shadows. And we got more hits by Cliff. I can't believe these guys. I just can't believe these guys weren't bigger. I just can't believe, in the States. I mean, I just can't. I know they were huge in England. I know that. I think right up there with Elton John, as far as all-time popularity or sales or something, or maybe second to Elton John. Good News, Cliff Richard. Yeah, I should also say, when it comes to Cliff Richard, he went on to do a lot of albums in the 70s and beyond and everything. I'm not interested. Once we get to the 70s, I stop. I just stay with Cliff Richard when he was with the Shadows. I don't know if that's going to change. Because as I say, like, you know, something like this, like, there's another movie, Summer Holiday. You know, I'm not really into this for Cliff. You know, Cliff just happens to be the guy in the front. I'm into it for the Shadows. And here's a later album that we have here called Change of Address, The Shadows. This is from, I'm trying to see, 1983? 1980. I mean, geez, who knew these guys were doing this? Here's some kind of a soundtrack to Cinderella, featuring Cliff and the Shadows. I'll get back to some more The Shadows Story, Volume 1. There they go, The Shadows. Speeding this along a little bit. Here's one on one of the later albums, Rockin' with Curly Leads. Now the thing too is, as I say, you can't get these records. These records are very rare. I haven't seen them. You know, I even asked a second store, and the second store doesn't have anything like Cliff Richard or the Shadows. It's like you have to get them not in the U.S. If you live in the U.S., you're not going to get them because you have to get all imports. You have to get, or whatever you want to call them, you know, original UK. This is an interesting album, Shades of Rock by the Shadows. Proud Mary, Lucille, Johnny Be Good, Paperback Writer, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, Boney Maroney, Get Back, Something, River Deep, Mountain High, Memphis, What I Say. A lot of like rock instrumental classics on here. Now this is something that I didn't really realize till after I bought it. I'm going to show you this. Get a load of this. There's a surprise on the back of this. This is Step Into the Shadows. The album here, this is one of the later albums. Looks like 1989 maybe? 1989? Are you serious? But get a look at this. This is the highlight. There's autographs on here. And not only are they autographed, look who they're autographed to. They're autographed to Joe. So, and I'm pretty sure this one down here is Hank Marvin. And I hadn't even really noticed this. I just, when I got at the store, that was an extra bonus. That was an amazing piece of fortunate surprise. Look at, here's a later album, Guardian Angel, The Shadows. I'm trying to find the years on this. 1981. It looks like 81. I mean, it's amazing to think to me that, you know, well, there were albums out there like Pat Benatar and Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I mean, they were releasing new albums, The Shadows. I mean, you know, I just can't even wrap my head around that. Hits Right Up Your Street. And, you know, different members, I guess, would come and go during the time of the Shadows. Anyway, I'm sorry. This one's called Specs Appeal, down there. Here's one called Life in the Jungle. And of course, this video by now, if you're sticking this far, should be for shadow enthusiasts only. Hank, Bruce, Brian, and John. You heard of John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Well, that's the lineup there. Hank, Bruce, Brian, and John. Okay, and there's the fold back flips on there. Established 1958. Eat your heart out, Beatles. You didn't start till 62, 63. They were around in 58. Cliff Richard and the Shadows. Getting to the end here with the vinyl. I just have some CDs to show. The Best of the Shadows. This is a really nice compilation. Looking very stoic there, very professional. Not as much there, but still, you know. Beatles Schmeedles. Who needs the Beatles? Just kidding. Look at this. A nice gatefold on this one. Yeah, look at that. Oh, what a nice gatefold. And the morning train makes its cruise down here rather loudly. Getting to the last few here. Here's a reunion. Cliff Richard and the Shadows, thank you very much. A reunion concert at the London Palladium in later years. This is also Tel Aviv, Israel, and Portrait Records. You know. Here's a live one. Shadows live at the Paris Olympia. Okay. Then I have this, which I picked up. Aladdin and his wonderful lamp. Cliff Richard's in the shadow. Cliff Richard, excuse me, in the shadows. Sorry, guys. You know, unless you're going to go back and delete and edit things, you just got to let the mistakes fly. Jigsaw. That's pretty cool. This is a Great Britain album. And I don't have the year handy, but I know, 1967. And here's one of the newer albums. 25. Oh, what's the 1983? The Shadows 25. So in other words, when I'm listening to Men at Work and A Flock of Seagulls, and when I'm going around listening to Michael Jackson's Thriller, this was out. I mean, who knew? I didn't know. Did you know? I didn't know. And the last vinyl I want to show here is Hank Marvin and John Farrar. I hope I said the name right. This is different. This is just Hank. Like I bought this for Hank Marvin. I mean, I don't know what this is. It's not The Shadows, but it's a Hank Marvin album. So listen to that. Now, I got a good deal on all these albums, I think. And after I got done looking at the albums, I found this a box here. The only thing is it's a little damaged. I just got to glue this up there. But the CDs are in excellent condition. And I asked the store owner, well, what about this? And he gave me a price for this. Opens up. And he eventually threw it in. He said, if you buy all the albums, all the vinyl, and this, and he threw it in almost, it seemed for free. He gave me a price on all the vinyl. And then later I brought this up, and he said, if you take all the vinyl, you can basically have that the same price. You know, throw it in as an extra for free. He didn't boost the price up any. Okay. Anyway, this has a booklet here. I'll just show you a little bit of that booklet. I mean, again, I'm just amazed. This is like the Beatles, for God's sake. I just can't believe this. I'm like, where did these guys, where'd they come from? They were around before I was born, for God's sake. And they were here, at least I was born when the Beatles were popular, for God's sake. These guys are still doing it. Anyway, here's like really quickly, I'm going to go through the discs. You know, if you want to stop freeze them, you can freeze them. So I think between these CDs and all that vinyl, I think I'm pretty good to go. And I'm going to be able to wrap this up in just under 25 minutes, I think. I mean, this is a 6 CD set, the early years, 1964 to 66. No, I'm sorry. Early years, 1959 to 1966, the whole thing. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I had a lot of fun with this. I'm very interested in hearing the comments and what you think. If you're a fan or not, if you know about these guys or not, whatever you think. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Have a great day, or what's left of it.